Good morning, Saints. I'm here to replace Bill and Ted. They're down south at a conference, and I don't get much opportunity to do Sunday school. Uh, I try to make it on a lesson that I can get within a day. I don't know how long this is going to go, but did you know the Lord's Prayer? It starts out, uh, I forgot how to do the Lord's Prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. But that really isn't the prayer, the Lord's Prayer. That's Matthew 6:19 when they asked him, teach us how to pray. The Lord's Prayer to me actually is John 17 when he was in the garden just before he was crucified. Now, I'm a number man, and praying, prayed, prayer, and prayers is mentioned in the Bible 510 times in the King James Bible. The Apostle Paul has prayer 78 times in his epistles. I'm going to go, if you got a pen and pencil, I'm going to give you some verses, and I want to show you how Paul prayed. Acts 16:25-26, Romans 1:9, Romans 8:26, Romans 12:12, 1 Corinthians 14:15, 2 Corinthians 13:7, 1:9-11. There's some of them I'm going to go through and read and just give you a little taste of what some of them are. In Second Corinthians 12:7-10, I asked the Lord to take away the thorn from my side 3 times, and the Lord replied, my grace is sufficient for you. For 2 Corinthians 12:7-10. We have a big audience today, and a lot of people that are scrambling for pencils and papers. So I'm not with the computer screens and everything else. I'm a paper and pencil man. Acts 14:19-20. It's Antioch. Paul was stoned to death. The apostles stood over him. He arose and he walked to Derbe, which is 50 miles. That's amazing. And if you think you have trouble, problems, I'm not going to read it. It's quite long. But 2 Corinthians 11:22-33. Paul talks about the difficulty he had in his ministry, traveling and otherwise. And he mentions that he was beaten with 40 stripes minus one. If you got beat at 41, that's death. 2 Corinthians 1, 6-8. 2 Corinthians 6, 5, 4. Paul prayed for others. He prayed for himself. And these are just a few that I'm going to mention here that shows how his prayer life was so different in different occasions. First, Corinthians 14:15. Ephesians 1:16, 6 and 12, or 6 and 18, I'm sorry. Philippians 1, 4, 9, and chapter 4, verse 6. Colossians 1, 9. Thessalonians 1, verse 2, chapter 3, verse 10, in 5 and 17. In 5:17, he says, pray without ceasing. In 5:23-25. 2 Thessalonians 1 and 11. 1 Timothy 2, 1, 4, 5, 5, and 5. It's amazing how the Bible is laid out. In Acts 7:6, Christ is on a cross, and he shouts out, Father, forgive them, for they know what they are doing. I'm sorry, that was Luke. Yeah, Luke 23, 24 or 34. Acts 7:6 is a stoning of Stephen. And he says, Lord, lay not the sins of their charges. Now, I don't know whether Stephen was at the cross, but it's similar to what Christ said. In 2 Timothy 4:6, Paul says, no man stood with me, but all men forsake me. I pray God that it may not be laid upon their charge. Now, Paul, he was there with the stoning of Stephen, and he heard these words. So it's just amazing how the Lord, Stephen, and Paul had the same message they asked forgiveness of the ones that tormented them and killed them. I was going to give a testimony about myself and how prayer helped me through my life. My problem started at age 6. But I have a problem the last several weeks. I volunteered on a World War II ship that pulled up to the shore, opened up the front, dropped the ramp, 21 tanks would come off, supplies would come off, and material for D-Day. And it kind of hit me hard because I talked to a lot of people, men. They had tears in their eyes when they boarded the ship or left. It was one hot day. I was in the galley in Charleston, West Virginia, and it was 120. The galley is what you call the kitchen. I stepped out on the deck for a little fresh air. I had my apron on. A lady came up to me. She says her dad worked in the galley on the LST 315. Could you let him go into the galley? I said, sure. He had a walker. Now the hatches have about a 2-foot step over, and they were oval shaped. For the purpose, they closed that door and it's sealed and it was waterproof. All the doors worked that way in case something happened. The hull breached or whatever, they can shut the doors and still keep afloat, hopefully. I helped him with his walker, got him into the galley. The galley was no more longer in this stage and just a little wider. He walked in, down around the stove, and he just cried. Back then, the stoves were all oil. Today, they're electric. We had refrigeration. And the refrigeration during his time was 2 decks down. And one was the refrigeration, the other was a freezer. And they had a dumbwaiter. That's what they call me, to go fetch. And that's how they got food up into the galley. What bothered me a lot was we spent one day for President, one day for Easter, one day for National Prayer, one day for Mother's Day, one day for Memorial Day, one day for D-Day, one day for Father's Day, one day for Independence Day, one day for Labor, one day for Patriot Day, and one day for Valentine's. and one day for Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. The population of the United States as of now is 331 million 4,095,281 hundred. During the American Civil War, which was all Americans, we lost 8,200 soldiers. World War I, we lost 18.5 million soldiers on both sides. On D-Day, we lost 14,000 soldiers and 19,000 casualties. United States total for World War II was 4,000. I'll just give you the numbers. 407, 300 military deaths. 40,000 Americans died in the Korean War. 58,220 American soldiers died in Vietnam. 2,448 died in Afghanistan. The population is, once again, 331,449,281. Only one day we are devoted to all those days. But a month is given to a population of 0.005. And we're to celebrate that month. We're made to honor them. We can go to jail if we burn their flag. But when they burn our flag, nothing happens. When I went to school, we had history. We were taught Gettysburg Address, the Constitution, and we had prayer. We saluted the flag, and we sang the Star-Spangled Banner before the school started. We were taught the white signifies purity. Red means hardiness, vigor, and blood. The blue signify valleys, and the stars signify the states. There are 13 colors of stripes. There are 13 stripes, and there were 13 stars on the original flag. The stripes never varied, but the stars did. When I look at that flag and I see the color red, and it stood for the blood of the soldiers that shed their life for our independence. Fort Sumter was attacked. A lawyer went out to the British, tried to negotiate their release. And the commander of the ships, the bay was just full of ships, said, when that flag goes down, they surrender, you get your prisoners. He went back and told them, and then he came back to the ship again, and they said, that flag's not coming down. The bombardment started that afternoon, all night till day. The prisoners kept on asking, is that flag still flying? That flagpole was hit, and men kept that flagpole propped. That flag was huge. We had a guy on the ship. He's what they call coxsman. And we had Higgin boats. Those were small boats that can carry a jeep and men. When it hit the shore, the front went down and they'd pile out. He was on the bloodiest battle of Iwo Jima, and he was taking casualties, and bodies were just floating. They didn't even make it to the shore. These are 17, 18, 20-year-old. Life ain't even started for them. They're not even buried on our American soil. When you look at Europe and you see all those graveyards with the crosses of military men, and we have to honor a whole month on the mountain of Bachi. There was two flag raising. One had a small flag tucked in his uniform, put it on a stick. The captain seen the men, and he could hardly see the flag. He gave the ship's flag to 5 guys and a photographer. They went up on that mountain, which was windy, and it took 5 guys to erect that pole to get that flag up. like I said, that ship that I was on was their D-Day. Sometimes when I do the baking at night, I go out and sit on the deck, and I just wonder what was on their mind before they got into that Higgin boat. That incident also, the bullets were just flying off the front of the landing deck gate. And as they left, some of them were so small and they had all their packing, they drowned and bodies were floating and the beaches were just filled. I got the opportunity, I was in a grocery store and I had a LST work shirt. They were yellow. They give it to us when we go down there when we're on a cruise. And the guy says that he was on LST 111. He said that they did what they call hot bunk. That means there's not enough room for every sailor to have their own bunk. And they had what they call quarter watch. That's right below the captain's deck. And they take all the readings of the speed, the compass readings and vital readings. And they're up there for an hour and then they're relieved. They were shy, one guy, and they were taking material from Hong Kong down to the Philippines, and they'd come back. It was his watch, and they got another guy from another ship to replace the one that was killed. He said he went up, and that guy was mad because this was like a wheelbarrow to him and not a fast car. He went up to the officer's deck, stole a 45 and killed 5 guys in their bunk. And if he was in that bunk, he would have never come home. It's bad enough to be shot by the enemy, but your own. Had one guy, he was in the Pacific, and I bake from 11 o'clock till about 6 o'clock. I make my pies, breads, and stuff like that. Then I stay on duty until breakfast is done. And then a lot of times I stay for lunch, and get stuff ready for supper, and then I go hit the bunk until 11 o'clock in the evening, and I get back up and start over again. He says, I was stationed in the Pacific, and he says, man, all we had was rice, rice, rice. He says, I didn't even want to see rice when I come home. I says, well, You're not going to like the meal tonight. Why? We're going to have chili on rice. 72 years and you're still serving rice. I heard a lot of stories. They poked their head in the door and they would start talking to me because I was watching different things that was cooking and so forth for the next meal. Some of them had their children with them. And they said, Dad, you never told us about that. Grandpa, I didn't know you did that. I seen guys leave that ship crying. Bring back a lot of memories. And for what's going on today, I hope and I pray that this country doesn't fall into European or Middle East or the Pacific, other than the Civil War and then our Revolutionary War. People, we are lucky, and I don't personally know how long our luck's going to run. We had 9/11, and you've seen the United States just get together cars that had their flags on their cars, and they were just all together. But as time went on, it's no longer in their minds. And the reason why I base my Sunday school lesson on prayer and show you how Paul used prayer for himself, for others. And today, we have to do it like Paul for our country, for our congregation, for the people that might be in a conflict on our own territory. I just want to say that today, more than ever, as Christians, we have to pray for others. And I thought it'd be a little longer. Um, Psalms 14:1. The fool that has said there is no God. They are corrupt. They have done abominable works. There is more than death. Proverbs 22:6. Train up children in the way he should go. When he is old, he will not depart from it. I've listened to Newsmax, and they were in a grade school, and I was just appalled about the classroom. We had black things on top of the wall to show you how to make your H's, how to get your I's, your capitals. We had arithmetic. We had social studies, history. We were taught the Constitution, the flag, the Pledge of Allegiance. I seen Red Skelton on YouTube, and he tore apart beautiful the Pledge of Allegiance. And if you ever get a chance to look at it, if there's, like I said, any time, it's time for praying for one another in our country. Philippians 4:3 is one of mine that brought me through. Like I said, my trouble started at 6 years old. I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. Someday, I'll give a testimony about my life. And I am a good example of prayer. Might not be what I wanted, and I got things that I didn't want. How can you go through life without Christ? I have no idea. Thank you all for coming. Heavenly Father,